Warning: the following audio drama contains adult themes and scenes of intense violence. Listener discretion is advised. Previously.
You're going to tell me where the library has been taken.
Sam!
You must save Samantha. She has been wounded.
Aaron!
You must not come with me.
I meant what I said when I said I was fearful for your soul. I will never kill another, but that doesn't mean there might be some good wounds.
I wish an audience with my lord now.
What makes you think they were witches?
They're able to fight with eyes blinded, talk to animals, even the dead.
A clan of knights paid visit last night. Said they were hunting a pair of witches who escaped them from the west.
You think I am one of them?
As I keep saying, I think there's a great risk to your soul.
Are you the one who did this to us all?
Your people have hidden things away that were never yours to conceal. In these words lies what rests within us all. You will read each and every line to me. You will not rest until you do.
Please, threaten to cut my tongue out. Then you hear nothing.
Only for the moment may that be true. But when this is learned, thought to thought, you will hide nothing from me, no matter how hard you try.
Eye of the Beholders. Episode 8. Burden of the Fallen. Aaron and Friar James gingerly walked into a ruined town, trailing their horses behind them. They were at first confused, then fearful for the townspeople, as it appeared the village had clearly been ravaged. Buildings burned, bodies littering the ground. Even tree limbs were broken and charred. Friar James tethered his horse and hurried to help. He knelt to an older lady holding her teenage daughter, both coiled on the ground. The youth was covered with large patches of bruised and beaten skin.
Mademoiselle.
They took everything. My poor daughter.
James carefully tried lifting them from the ground onto their knees, then noticed the blood on the young girl's smock near the groin. Meanwhile, Aaron examined the cadaver of a dead soldier. The armor covering the sentry wasn't French, but English. Aaron stood, taking in the fullness of the destruction.
Routiers, mercenaries, working with the English. When they're not being paid by the crown, they take their payment from the land in rather unholy ways. I must see to the church here.
I will come with you.
No. They will only talk to who they see as one of their own.
Then I will do what I can here.
James nodded, then mounted his steed and rode in the direction of the cathedral steeple. Aaron paused. The destruction around him confirmed his worst fears of modern civilization. As he walked, he saw villagers trying to help one another with cleaning wounds, taking stock of what they had left, and looting the corpses of the dead soldiers. Here and there, pockets of families huddled together and bawled at the destruction of their homes. In a few cases, wives were attending to the wounds of their husbands, who did their best to protect their livelihood from the bandits. It was a bloody mess. With his 5 children surrounding him, a villager named Louis shoved his wife away while she tried cleaning his wounds. He bolted to grab a hatchet, then raced to a dead soldier and proceeded to chop him into bits. Aaron rushed over and arrested him.
Stop! Stop! He is dead. There is nothing more you can do to him.
Louis paused, checking the ferocity of his own madness. He dropped the hatch, allowing Aaron to gently pull him from the corpse.
Our home. Everything. Gone. All because of them bastards.
Aaron held him back as his anger flared again.
We have nothing left.
But you and your family live?
Louis stared at him, still in shock, finally nodding in the affirmative.
And you still have everything of value.
Aaron returned him to his family. The littlest children were terrified to come near, their father covered with the splattering of the soldiers' blood. Aaron held Louis's forearm, hoping to inspire him that all was not lost.
What you built here, you can build again. Perhaps even better.
They will just come again and take it. And there is no money to rebuild.
You pay with your skill, with your spirit. Come together as a village.
You surely are daft. Who are you anyway?
My name is Aaron.
Louis wobbled, still overcome with the intensity of it all. Aaron helped him to remain standing.
I am Louis. And like many in this town, my family and I are now homeless.
Not homeless.
Another disheveled townsman named Willoughby limped over and put a comforting arm around Louis.
You all right? Half our home is gone, my friend. But with some help, we can make do.
Willoughby's wife and 2 children melted into Louis's family to offer assistance. Louis gave Aaron a look.
You see, home is not a building that takes up space on land.
The hell it isn't. Only to a wanderer like yourself.
I only meant...
We know what you meant. You want to help? Get some food for soon-to-be starving bellies. Come on, Louis. You and the rest.
Aaron watched as the 2 families wandered away. Then he stepped to an overturned barrel outside one of the burnt buildings and took it up. With a calm breath to center his mind, he trekked into the nearby woods. Later, Louis and his family were staring longingly at the fire with Willoughby and his clan. The shock was still too overwhelming. Indeed, half the house laid in shambles, having been partially burnt during the invasion. Aaron suddenly appeared, heaving the barrel he had taken into the woods.
What do you want?
Aaron dumped a huge mound of fruits and vegetables from the barrel. Stunned, the wives hurried over and examined the stash.
There's enough here to last a week.
With some cleaning and chopping? Soups. And maybe with others, stews.
The ladies gazed at Aaron in wonder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Louis and Willoughby came over. They couldn't believe what they were seeing.
We are in your debt for this.
No debt. Just making you feel at home.
With that, Aaron stepped back outside. Twilight had settled over the burg. It appeared Willoughby's home was not too far from the center of town, as Aaron could make out villagers dragging corpses to the town square and setting them afire in a mass funeral pyre. Willoughby and Louis emerged from the ramshackle home and watched the blaze alongside Aaron.
Don't know if the city will ever recover from this.
Why do you say such things?
Look at us. We are not nobility. We have no wealth to demand obedience.
And what little we got, those bastard English just took.
Wealth is much more than possessions and coins.
Really? Then what is it?
Your mind, your talents, your skills, and how you perceive them within yourself and unfold them to your advantage.
He suddenly spotted Friar James on his horse, looking around for him. He waved him down. Meanwhile, Willoughby and Louis glanced at one another, understanding Aaron's logic, but unable to accept it, considering the circumstances. James dismounted his stallion as he recognized Aaron's approach.
They've completely sacked the cathedral, kidnapped the rector, and are holding him for ransom. The mayor will soon be asking everyone for whatever valuables they have left to get him back.
And if they cannot pay?
Oh, they will. They will.
Come back!
Aaron and James stepped aside just as one of Louis's children, 17-year-old Labrie, galloped by on Aaron's horse.
He said he was going after the English to get back what they stole.
He grabbed James by the lapels of his robes.
They will kill him, Blackfriar!
We will stop him.
James and Aaron took James's stallion and gave chase. Louis peered about, frantic. Other folks nearby watched curiously.
Help me! Help me!
James pushed his horse to close the gap to Labrie.
Son, stop! You're making a grave mistake.
Labrie looked back, then darted for an outcropping of trees. James and Aaron followed, but were beginning to lose sight of him in the darkness of the branches and looming nightfall. Labrie rushed through a stream, over a hill, and into more trees. He came out of the woods onto a path, confident he had lost them. James stopped at the stream.
I have no idea where he has gone.
Aaron closed his eyes and felt the air.
He would first cross the water, hoping the current would cut his tracks.
James nodded at the soundness of his prediction and moved them through the stream.
Then up the hill, so he could have the higher advantage.
You track animals, too?
No.
We are going to lose him in the dark.
Yes, but not the horse.
The canopy of forest trees made the darkness of night even blacker, forcing Labrie to slow, then finally stop. He looked about for where to turn next. The voices caught him. Had he found them? Those that attacked his village? He saw a faint light deeper in the woods. Louis rode to the stream, trying desperately to find his son, with only the glow of a torch to guide him.
Zabri!
Meanwhile, James slowed as he and Aaron spied some distance ahead 2 English knights brandishing torches, taking Aaron's stolen horse into the woods.
That does not look good.
We know we are near their camp.
How can we hope to get him back if he has been taken?
A trio of English knights on horseback suddenly appeared behind them, lighting up the shadows with torches. 2 more foot soldiers emerged from the shrubbery, boxing them in.
We've only come for the boy. We have no quarrel.
A foot soldier hurriedly grabbed him and threw him off the horse. A rider came up alongside and pelted Aaron, also felling him to the ground. Aaron rolled, then stood as if the impact were negligible. He quickly checked on James, then helped the friar to his feet. The knights encircled them.
We will not fight you.
Good. Wouldn't want you and the Black Friar here to seek God sooner than needed. Unless, of course, that is your wish.
No, but God already sees us all.
A knight twirled his sword, angry at the provocation. Aaron stepped between him and James.
I said we will not fight you.
The commanding knight motioned for his comrade to cease the sword, then motioned with his finger for the company to round them up. A squad of knights, squires, and pages, about 50 men, kept the 6 bonfires burning while they continued to set up the large pavilion tents. The sight of Aaron and James being escorted into the campground forced the English noble leading the band to sit up and take notice.
I'm looking for the boy.
That's so.
He scrutinized James.
How come we didn't see you at the church?
Not my diocese. We came after you.
Left it smoldering? Like Sodom and Gomorrah?
Our valuables are meager, but if it spares the child.
Oh, but then we would not be following the good word, humble Black Friar. Does it not say that whoever spares the rod hates their children?
Surely such a boy offers no value to you.
He's brought us you two, hasn't he?
He motioned for the entourage to take them away. The knights forced Aaron and James through the camp, revealing many warriors counting booty, hauling beaten and bloodied prisoners. Finally, they were thrown into a tent, where they found Labrie, bound, gagged, and badly beaten, tied to a post. The swelling of his face made it nearly impossible for him to look at Aaron and James. They looked at the sentries, wondering if they would be next. The guards quickly began tying their wrists.
Like him? Are we going to be treated?
Vex us, and you most certainly will.
The sentry shoved him and Aaron to posts, tying them to the stakes. At the same moment, Louis was riding into a field, looking lost.
Labrie!
4 knights emerged from behind trees, almost blinding him with the intensity of their torches. Louis halted, terrified. then relaxed as they approached.
Thank the good Lord. You are not English.
No, it was Pierre and his men.
You were expecting English scum?
They ravaged our town.
They are near?
My foolish son.
Pierre addressed one of his men.
Deliver word to the camp. We will find your son and clear away the Anglo roaches.
The only light within the Avignon basement came from the hearth and a few candles. While Samantha remained limp in the chair, the Muein book still open before her. The sudden chill of a water drop jerked her back to the moment, again and again. Yet she refused to look at the text, refused to even open her eyes. She was exhausted, but unwilling to give in. Pasquier stared from his perch at the hearth. Even he had grown fatigued in the falling of night. Samantha opened a weary eye and watched as he answered the knock. The door opened inward, blocking her from seeing who was on the other side. Pasquier returned in. Samantha closed her eyes. Pasquier sat in the plush leisure chair, watching her, seeming more alert than he had been the last hour. Samantha could feel the shift in his energy, as if he were suddenly and strangely rejuvenated. It left her intrigued. Back at the English camp, Aaron and James were tied to posts inside the tent. Aaron did his best to meditate, eyes closed, so as to remain centered and pool his energies, while two guards stood watch. James couldn't get over how badly Labrie had been mauled.
He suffers hanging there. Please let the boy lay on the ground.
A sentry cut the rope tying Labrie to the post, then pummeled him to the ground. There was no way the young boy was going to be getting back up.
Listen.
Aaron opened his eyes, suddenly looking worried.
I have a must-need to speak with your master.
You can speak to me.
A dark cloud comes. It will rumble like a great thunder over this camp.
Listen to him. God has gifted him with prophecy.
If you do not uproot everyone now and leave, you will all be slaughtered.
Prophecy, eh?
He threw a punch, but Aaron skillfully moved aside, milliseconds before he could connect. This caught everyone's attention. The sentry tried again, and again. How Aaron moved, anticipating where the thrust was coming from, the speed of the attack. It was eerie.
Fetch him! What is this cloud?
He circled behind Aaron, then threw another punch. No matter, Aaron still moved aside, as if he had eyes in the back of his head. The sentry threw more swings, treating the whole thing as if it were an amusing game.
I only see the darkness, but can feel its intent.
His words caught James's curiosity.
Not altogether knowing on the details,
but it is enough to help save you.
Another sentry returned with the English noble.
Now what is this you speak of? If you don't want to end up like the boy there.
Your camp is in grave danger.
The main sentry threw a trio of quick punches. Like always, Aaron easily maneuvered aside. Intrigued, the noble edged close.
Pocket up. Ready the forward guard.
With that, two of the sentries cut Aaron loose, but continued holding him prisoner.
You remain with me.
What of my friend, the Black Friar?
He stays. From which direction does this fear come, O great seer?
South.
You tell me everything before it happens. This way.
Meanwhile, though still tied to the post, James focused on the pair of sentries keeping watch on him. They seemed jittery as the camp outside moved into high gear.
I am here for the good of your souls, should you need me.
One of the sentries stopped inches from his face, glaring at him.
God will not abandon us.
The nobleman had Aaron brought into another tent. His soldiers kept him arrested while the Englishman pulled weapons from an armory chest.
You know how to fight?
I will not kill another.
Good.
He handed weapons to the two guards holding Aaron.
That's to my advantage. How long do you predict we have?
Not long.
Indeed, Pierre and his company slammed into the English frontal guard, out near the main roadway. Bolts and swords blurred in the darkness. Tree branches were chopped onto English guards while Pierre and his team slowly advanced. The English nobleman grit his teeth and his muscles tensed, ready to join the fight.
Wait. The measure of a man is not based on who he beats. You do not have to fight.
As a warrior, that's all you have got.
Only in your thoughts do you imprison yourself as being a warrior. In nature, you are a living, breathing, dynamic life.
Still, the Englishman seethed, rocking on his heels.
And I shall spread our seed!
With that, he charged to join the battle. The two guards shoved Aaron forward. Without warning, Aaron somersaulted, knocking both to the floor. With fancy footwork, he disarmed one, knocking him cold. The other came at him with his sword. Aaron anticipated the blow, using it to cut the rope tying his wrists. Hands freed, he incapacitated the foe, then raced outside. The English noble hustled by on his horse as Aaron left the tent. Aaron hurried along the perimeter, hoping to return and rescue Friar James. Instead, he spied the clergyman and other prisoners being prodded into a prison wagon. He looked up at the trees, then ran in the opposite direction of the fight, moving between knights and squires bolting to engage.
Move the prisoners! Secure the bounty!
Meanwhile, at the front, the English noble engaged Pierre's men.
Show me your leader! Where's your leader?
Pierre came for him. They locked weapons.
You wish to provide terms?
I have prisoners. Pay their ransom and we will be on our way.
Anglo shit.
He pummeled the noble. Pierre knocked him from his horse, then yanked a dagger and stapled it between the Englishman's eyes.
Rescue our prisoners.
At the same moment, carriages carrying bounty and prisoners were hustling to leave the camp, guided by other knights on horseback. Aaron leapt down from a tree onto the prison wagon. He rolled to the front, taking out the two squires driving. Parading knights attempted to converge on him. Aaron knocked one off his horse while simultaneously trying to steer in the dark. The other swung his sword, keeping Aaron off balance. Another knight jumped onto the wagon at the rear and scurried toward the front. Aaron turned the cart off the road, using tree limbs to swipe the intruder from reaching him. A few knights and squires continued pursuing as they went deeper into the woods. No longer on the main path, the ride became bumpy. And in the darkness, Aaron couldn't see where to steer. Plus, his head wound was once again stinging. A wagon wheel struck something and immediately halted the escape. Aaron jumped down and disappeared into the darkness. Two knights and one squire rode in. They hesitated, knowing Aaron was lurking. The squire leapt down and moved toward the wagon. Aaron suddenly soared over the first knight, pulling him from the horse. The squire raced to help, but Aaron easily knocked him out cold. The second knight rushed forward, but Aaron quickly disappeared into the darkness. Aaron suddenly jumped. The knight instinctively swung his sword, but Aaron clasped the blade in between his hands, stopping it inches from his face. He twisted the weapon, forcing the warrior off the horse and onto the ground. Broadsword in hand, Aaron rushed to the wagon and cut the lock away. He tossed the blade aside as he threw open the door. Friar James and the church rector and a handful of others clambered out.
Are you all right?
Still in shock, James simply nodded.
Where's the boy?
James shook his head, meaning he had been left behind. The squire burst from the darkness, racing to stake Aaron in the spine. On instinct, Friar James grabbed the dropped broadsword and intercepted. But instead of swinging, he pointed the blade straight out, and the squire ran into it, impaling himself on the blade. Friar James stared, wide-eyed, as the boy collapsed dead onto his side. Aaron saw the sudden terror in James's face. He had just killed a man. Aaron took him by the shoulders and pulled him back.
James. Black Friar.
James gazed in terror at the other prisoners. He raced to the rector and fell on his knees before him. The rector hesitated. He, too, was caught in shock himself. Then he knelt and placed a hand on James. Aaron felt the unimaginable heaviness now drowning his friend. In the dank basement in Avignon, Pasquier stood atop a ladder to refill the bowl dripping onto Samantha. She was still delirious, hoping to find sleep, but the torture kept interrupting. Pasquier climbed down and sat opposite her at the table.
Tell me what is on this first page, and I may let you sleep.
How you...
Rest is not something I require. Now.
He clasped the top of the book and angled it toward her. Samantha half opened her eyes. When another drop hit, it gave her a short burst of intensity to look more closely. She focused on Pasquier's fingers at the top of the page.
You don't like to dirty your hands.
She smirked. Pasquier frowned, then dropped the book and stood.
On the contrary, to get what I want.
He turned away, pausing to think while taking a look at his fingers.
What is your name again?
You never asked.
Pasquier suddenly pounced on her. He cupped her ear in his hand and closed his eyes.
Because I don't need to. You will give it up to me. Samantha.
He let go. Samantha slumped, having lost the battle.
You see, 'tis only a matter of time before I learn what you refuse to give.
He went to the shelf and took another vial. He noted the first light of dawn cracking through the small window slits near the ceiling.
And it is time again to give you more of this.
He advanced on her. Back at the desolated English camp, Louis bawled over the ruined body of his deceased son, Debris. Pierre and his men wandered through fallen soldiers, killing Englishmen who showed any signs of life.
After the last gasp of vermin, we resumed the ride to my lord.
From the edge of the woods, Aaron spied. Recognizing Pierre, he turned away and sneaked off. Later, he entered the forest clearing where the former prisoners had found to take their refuge. James lied sprawled on his back within the reeds and foliage, staring up at the stars, his spirit in ruin over his killing of the squire. Aaron briefly questioned the rector, then sat beside James and gently helped him to sit up. By daybreak, Aaron, James, and the others returned to the town, guided by the rector. A few relieved townsfolk hurried to hug the clergyman, while those who had been taken during the raid peered about to find their families. Everyone looked stunned at the village's devastation. The rector nestled close to James and Aaron.
Come, where we may ask for peace.
He led them into the cathedral. A handful of people hurried to assist the rector. The Holy Father instead had them tend to Aaron and James. The two were led to the front of the nave. The rector followed. Aaron struggled with his inner terrors as he drew closer to the large effigy of Christ hanging above the pulpit, recalling a similar image with Eloan when he was interrogated before being tortured. When they reached the front pew, James slumped into it. Slowly, Aaron sat beside him, while the rector stood alongside.
I should be cast afire before sitting well in here.
The night obscured all our vision. As I keep telling you, we all know it was an accident, especially our Lord.
James refused to acknowledge his words, instead choosing to remain silent.
What little we have left, you may use for respite until you can travel.
Thank you.
One of the helpers noticed some blood on the back of Aaron's neck.
I will get something for that.
My own needs. I must now.
He suddenly appeared, overwhelmed. Gravity of it all, at last, taking its toll. The helpers assisted him away. James slid off the pew, planting his butt on the cold floor. Distraught, Aaron knelt beside him.
Blackfriar. James.
Please.
Aaron hesitated, then sat beside him on the floor, moving his legs into lotus position.
It was not an accident. He was going to kill you. My mind could only think. An eye for an eye. He ran through the blade in my hand as I wanted vengeance.
That you grieve shows you have not considered his life less than sacred. Is this not the lesson Christ would have you learn?
James shook his head, still doubting himself. A helper returned and cleaned Aaron's wound.
Here. Whatever dressing this was before, a part of it has been torn. Fortunately, looks like the bleeding has stopped. You may hold on to this.
Aaron took the rag and nodded in gratitude. He closed his eyes to meditate. Hours later, the helpers were still refusing people at the main doors, telling them the rector was still recovering from his ordeal. At the same time, James simply stared ahead of himself, clearly too numb to comprehend a thing. Even Aaron beside him in deep meditation. James suddenly stood, then strode down the center aisle toward the doors. His departure awoke Aaron. With a sense of peaceful rejuvenation, the Muein guardian lifted himself up and gracefully followed. James stopped outside on the church steps, staring at the village before him. He saw townspeople helping one another to rebuild, their faces still full of sadness. Some still grappling with unimaginable sorrow. Aaron came up behind him. They both saw Louis being met by his wife in the street. Their sudden tears revealed the news of Labríe's death.
I couldn't even save their boy. Now, they will be lost without him.
No. Come with me.
He led him to Louis and his wife. When the elder man saw them, he fell at James's feet.
My son, Blackfriar! They took my son!
James lifted him up and held him, unsure of how to really respond, burdened in himself with the specter of death.
No, he still stands here with you.
Louis and his wife looked at him.
He says he knows you went looking for him after we took chase, and that you had gone off the path before you reached the creek.
Louis and his wife stared, astounded. They looked to James for affirmation.
Listen to him. It is acceptable. Corinthians chapter 12.
Aaron addressed Louis's wife.
He says he saw you pray all night for his return, and how you had to be strong in keeping the faith with his brothers and sisters, and that he is sorry, so deeply sorry that his anger, his want of returning those possessions which bring from material life, led him off the path of goodness.
James looked over at him, stunned. Then Aaron looked at Louis.
He is grateful you were not harmed, and followed you from the camp back to here, and felt your tears when you collapsed in the golden field just yonder. And now he comes to remain with all of you.
I did. In the gold field.
He was right there with you, just as he is here, right now.
Is he not with God?
He has always been, just as you are. He lives in both places, here and there, just now in a body that you cannot see.
James stared at him, captured by his spirit reading.
He says he loves you both, and his brothers and sisters as well. He will never leave, and would hope you continue to speak with him. And forget the time he left the odor in church.
My boy lives. His spirit lives.
Will he be able to return at the resurrection?
With all of you.
Louis and his wife gave both Aaron and James enthusiastic hugs. Then they embraced each other.
He's alive. He's alive. My son.
All of a sudden, rose petals blew in on the wind, encircling them. They were all astounded. For James, this was a miracle, momentarily stealing away his depression and transmuting it to wonder. Aaron smiled, warmly acknowledging the Spirit's efforts. He took James by the arm, leading him away, leaving behind the family and bewildered townsfolk to the rain of flowers.
You have ended the life of no one.
Friar James looked back, still enthralled by the falling petals.
When you left the building, why then?
I just felt I had to go.
At the very moment our Father returns. A part of you was guided by the Spirit.
James gazed over at him, captivated by the possibility. Was he really inspired by the power of Spirit? The whole event left him spellbound. Next time.
Samantha needs you. You must not stay here.
I now steal your thoughts and know what you know. Show me how to read the texts. Give me what I demand to know.
My lord, when we first set out, there were 2 men and the girl. When they arrived at the western caves, one of the men had gone and was replaced by another woman who we burned. Was this man you found older or younger?
Older. So there is another one out there.
And when I first saw the girl, she claimed he was her husband.
Aaron!
I must go. My companion is in grave danger.
And I cannot remain here. I must save my companions as you would save yours.